And we're back again for the Barry Foster Show. Again, not in the beautiful Ridge Florist Studios in the city of Charm, Avon Park. We are indeed on the phone with JohnLarsen, who is up in the Buckeye State of Ohio, touring dirt tracks, and so far it's been a very successful tour. John, good morning. Good to have you with us, my friend.
Yes, sir. How are we doing?
Well, we're back for round two, and for the folks who didn't listen yesterday, you have toured a number of dirt tracks with yet some more to come.
Oh, yes. Yep, absolutely. That's for some folks, this would probably seem kind of crazy, but when my wife passed away 7 years ago, and I've always made a summer trek and try to go also at Christmas time. I didn't get to go to at Christmas time this year, but so I'm trying to make up for some of my travel lost, this summer. And I've done this now for about the last 5 or 6 years. And I've seen a lot of, mostly in the Midwest and Pennsylvania, that area up in New York State and so on, to get to as many tracks as I can. And, the times that I've got when I get in, strike up a conversation with people, I sat behind some people last night from Arizona, and they were traveling in their motorhome, and I guess, trying to visit some different tracks and so on. So some people, when I tell them, what I've been doing for the last few years, they say, wow, that sounds amazing. I'd like to be able to do that. So, so evidently it's not a bad situation after all.
And it appears that under the Trump administration, for years we have lamented the closing of many very traditional tracks. But it seems like the tracks that you're visiting are, despite the rain and the wet weather, they're still able to keep the doors open.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when you get into the hotbed part of this part of Ohio and even further south in Ohio, and then in Pennsylvania and New York, those three states are really amazing states when it comes to racing fans and racing people and racing facilities and so on. There's, some of them, like this place I was at last night, Millstream. Now, it was in operation for quite a while, and then it was shut down for a number of years. And the only reason I picked up on this was a fellow that I go to church with. He and his wife are snowbirds, but they live in Findlay. And he was telling me, he says, John, he said, you ought to go to that Millstream track. He said, you'd like it. So I looked it up, and sure enough, I thought, okay, they started up, they reopened the track last year. They only ran about 4 or 5 racing dates. And then this season, they're into kind of a full mode, some on Saturday, some on Sunday racing and whatnot. But that was the track I was at last night. But it looked like, the facilities was pretty good. Like I said, the dust was beyond belief. I even got dust inside my car, and I was probably parked a good in the field about a quarter of a mile from the racetrack. That's how far it was to walk, and that's how many cars were there. And yet I'm looking, and I've got dust inside the car. So you know how bad it was.
So now, are
But
these
but only a diehard fan would do this, okay?
are these first come first serve, or are these reserve seats?
No, no, no. First come, first serve. And believe me, I got there. I thought I got there early. The racing I thought was going to start. They said last night when I got there, people told me, "Oh, it started at 6 o'clock." Well, I got there about 4:30, and I thought I'd be all right. I'll be early. I'll be able to get good. I'm telling you, I had to park about as far away from the grandstand as I've ever parked before.
Have the temperatures been cool in the evening to
Uh,
watch a race?
well, let me tell you something. I've been in Florida now for 19 years. When it gets below 70, I'm cold. Okay. And needless to say, I kind of dressed for the weather last night, and I had a sweatshirt that I put on, thank goodness. But I saw people wrapping up in blankets. It was down around 65, and wrapping up in blankets and putting on a couple of shirts and a couple of sweatshirts and so on and so forth. So even those folks who I assume most of them live here, it was kind of cold even for them.
Well, you've been able to keep up with world events during your trip, even though you've been watching the racetrack. And just before this call that we're having today, you had a chance to talk to our good friend Tom Trento from United West, who is our Israeli expert, and we talked a little bit about the things that have happened. Did he have any idea of what might be next? Did he have any information out of Israel? I know he was going to go, but didn't. Has he been able to give you any kind of insight of what may be happening over the next few days?
Well, he's got a lot of friends because he's been in Israel so many times and keeps in touch with what's going on over there constantly. I mean, he's got a lot of people that are inside Israel that are in the know when it comes to, the kind of things that are going on in Israel. Now, maybe some of the things he can't divulge because he's got, some kind of a secrecy factor, let's say. I don't know for sure, but that may be some of it. But I mean, he's well in touch with what's going on. And when I talked to him this morning about, okay, Tom, how do you see this? Some of it, which I've already mentioned, but I mean, he felt that this was not going to want to drag on because he said if they're going to just shoot rockets back and forth, this could go on for an extended period of time. And that's going to cost Israel a lot because of their size. And, they've got the golden dome, so to speak. But I mean, they can't get, and they are not getting every one of these rockets that's being fired in. So every time one of them strikes in Israel, and they're shooting at nothing but, residential neighborhoods, trying to kill as many people and demoralize the people as possible in Israel. So Netanyahu knows this as a politician. He cannot let this go on rocket for rocket back and forth for an extended period because he's going to lose in the end. He'll probably lose some credibility. So he wants to get this over with. But at the same time, he knows he's got to destroy or eliminate the nuclear facilities that are in Iran, one way or the other.
Well, as I understand it, the preliminary strikes have taken out about a third of the launching facilities in Iran, and they're going to go back for more so that not as many missiles are being able to be launched into Israel for them to have to defend against. But yes, I've seen some pictures out of Tel Aviv, and there has been quite a bit of destruction there in Israel.
Yes, there has, and whatnot. And that again, that's what Tom was saying this morning. Throwing one, I'll throw a rocket at you, you throw a rocket at me, and I'm talking one, but you're talking maybe 50 or 100 rockets. The question then becomes, who's going to run out of rockets first? Okay, because you have so many. Let's say you have a couple thousand of these things, but if you're firing 150 or 200 a day, how many days are you going to be able to go? Now, I did see some film clip this morning, and one thing that Israel has that Iran does not have is an air force, and they're very good at what they do. And I'll tell you, the inside, I'm amazed at the amount of inside information that Israel has able to get on what goes on in Iran. Because when you take a look, when this first started, who did they go after and target and got them was, you're right, the scientists that were associated with this nuclear facility, all right, and some of their top mucky mucks within the Ayatollah's regime. So this was a big thing for them. They knew who to go. They brought them together. They sent messages to these people and said, you need to be at this facility for this meeting, posing as some kind of an inside Iranian, person, an Iranian official. So they brought these people together in one location, and Israel says, "Okay, fine, we got them now. We're going to go ahead and and blow these people up," and they did.
That was one of the greatest moves since they distributed those explosive pagers
Yes.
and blew up those people. It was the Israelis are extremely smart and are just able to do that kind of thing. So when it comes to the United States, we've heard that Iran is now first they were asking some of the other uh, Middle Eastern countries, Qatar and I think Yemen, trying to get the United States to intervene and to slow down and to have talks. Now we understand that they've just come to the United States. Currently, even as we speak, Donald Trump is at the G7 summit, surrounded by other world leaders. I can't think of a better place for him to be, a more fertile place to make deals, to get these things done than where he is right now. The Lord has put him in exactly the right place.
Oh, yes. And I think that, again, I'm sure he's going to have more conversations with the leaders of Canada about this potential Golden Dome, which, if Canada wants to be brought under the umbrella of that Golden Dome, I'm sure that Trump is going to be ready to say, okay, I've got an offer you can't refuse. Okay. And whatnot. So we'll see if anything concrete comes out of that with the Canadians, Prime Minister. And so on. I hope it does because there's no reason we've been trading partners for 100 years. There's no reason why this relationship with Canada shouldn't continue along that path. And I think that hopefully the Canadians, although the person they elected, I think is not a good person from what I understand up there, and so on. He's a socialist, if maybe not even part communist, and so on. So the Canadian people are going to be suffering, from his administration and the lack of compatibility and trading partnership that they've had with the United States. Both of us really need each other to some degree. We can probably outlast the Canadians because of our size and physical makeup, but I'm sure the Canadians would be better off if we drop this business of, Trump is not going to take over Canada. That was something that he just threw out there to get people talking, and it did. But we're not going to take Canada and make it the 51st state. Okay. They just want Canada to become a partner and a trading partner and someone that we can live with, if you will. And hopefully Trump can make some progress in that while he's up there.
It'll be interesting to watch because we saw how quickly things can turn around after the first Trump administration. Sandra and I were talking about this morning. You could not have told people how bad it was going to get and have them believe you. If you would have told them the way that it turned out at the end of the Biden administration, they would have scoffed and said, "Oh, well, that'll never happen. That'll never happen." But indeed, it did happen. And now him trying to put everything back up right again has been a real challenge, especially with being blocked by judges and having to slow things down. So Canadians may be undergoing the same kind of thing, understanding how bad it's going to get in Canada before they get someone who's uh, for lack of a better term, a Canada First candidate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, I believe that if Trump goes up there and he becomes kind of a negotiator and is, going to be able to offer the Canadians what he's tried to say in public right along for the Canadians' benefit, and hopefully that some of that will strike a chord with their leadership. I don't know, but maybe with the people back in Canada, because he whipped up before he got elected. The conservative was ahead by far in Canada before their recent election. But then what happened when Trump started talking about making Canada 51st state, this guy that got ultimately got elected used that as, Trump trying to take over the country of Canada, and the Canadian people are going to suffer. And then what happened, the conservative who had the lead in this whole election lost it all and then ended up getting defeated by the guy that's in there now.
Yeah, and I will tell you that it was interesting to me to watch what has happened before, during, and after this Flag Day demonstration that the radical left staged for everyone. And one was this Democrat shooting up in Minnesota. I mean, you don't get much bluer than Minnesota. Minnesota
Oh,
is
yeah.
about as deep as it comes. And this Speaker of the House, this Melissa Horseman, and her husband gets killed. That Senator John Hoffman, and his wife were injured by this guy. They've arrested this Vance Butler, and he allegedly was a Tim Walz appointee. And their sin was that they had been cooperating with the Republicans on getting a budget deal done for Minnesota. So you have radical leftists, uh, apparently, what it looks like, going after other Democrats who dare to negotiate with Republicans, and it's a chilling thing to watch.
Well, I'll tell you, if you watched any of the antics by Tim Walz this last couple, 3 weeks, and I've seen a number of the film clips on TV, he believes that he's going to be a potential candidate for president in 2028. But in reality, he's nothing but a fool. and the things that he says are just crazy, and the things that he espouses, if you just look at the way he's run the state of Minnesota, it's in deplorable condition. I mean, there's no, they essentially give a red flag or, whatever, a green flag, if you will, to the criminals in Minnesota. Because the guy that is the Attorney General of Minnesota his name is Ellis, I think. He used to be a big mucky muck in the Democratic Party, probably still is, but he ended up being the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, and he essentially, like California and New York, he essentially puts no one in jail. And so you've got crime that is on the rise in Minnesota. I think you've got people that have left the state of Minnesota and so on. And there's really nothing much good has happened to Minnesota under the leadership of this Tim Walz guy.
And the question is, well, how long will the citizens put up with it? There are people who believe that one of the reasons that Donald Trump won all the swing states and had the overwhelming victory that he had was that even people who identify with the Democrat Party looked around at the 157 genders and the victimization that was going on, the DEI hires, and then looked at the way the country was going, said, look, we don't particularly like the Republicans, but we can't keep going this way. And Donald Trump and the American First uh, movement offered them a return to normalcy. I'm hoping that in some of these states, in California and in Minnesota and some of these other deep blue states, that you're going to have people who will see the light of day and be rational and say, look, party politics aside, we have to get back to living normal American lives.
That is correct. But the one thing that we've got, or the country has in Minnesota, is a big, big, big Somali population, and they're big enough and strong enough that guess who they put in Congress, and whatnot. And she's been there, and she's nothing but a radical, nothing but a warmonger. She's anti-police, she's anti-everything, and so on. So as long as they have that majority population they have in the Somali community, it's always going to be a state of unrest and disrespect for the law and so on. So somehow that has got to be mitigated. And I don't know whether a new leadership in Minnesota would make it happen. But that's part of the problem they've got is that huge Somali population, and they're really, like, a lot of them are not conforming to America. They're not really becoming citizens, if you will. They may be on paper, but when it comes to believing in the country and believing what the country should be, I don't think you're going to get that out of that community.
No, you're talking about assimilation, and Ilhan Omar, who is supposedly married her brother, to get in to become a citizen. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that unpacks. You're up in the Midwest up there. You've been touring Ohio, and you're going to be going up into Indiana. Your daughter already lives in Pennsylvania. Do you get any kind of read on how things are going up there? Are they happy with what's happening? Are they unhappy with what's happening?
Well, you got to remember, in the area where my daughter lives and where I was born and raised is up around the Erie, Pennsylvania area, which has been Democratic forever. The last time I looked, it had been like 58 years, I think, since a Republican was a governor and whatnot, and so on. So in Pennsylvania, they have been led by Democrats, and Erie has been a Democratic city. The third largest city in Pennsylvania is Erie. And between Erie, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia, those are the big three in the state. And I'll tell you, I was really surprised when Trump was able to carry Pennsylvania. All right, I really was, because it is highly, highly Democratic and so on. So it'll be interesting to see. My daughter said that there's been all kinds of protests up there up leading to this No King's Day, if you will. And she said they've been all over everywhere in the Erie area. And so that part of it hasn't changed and whatnot. But be interesting to see how it looks and how it acts going forward.
Well, Trump has gotten some support from a very unlikely area in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman has stepped forward on more than one occasion to support Trump, much to the dismay of many of the Democrats that are up there.
Yeah, he's become kind of like the ugly child in the Democratic Party from Pennsylvania for sure, because he's spoken out in favor of Israel, which of course that's against the party line and whatnot. And in the Democratic Party, if you go against the party line, you'll be ostracized forever. And I think Fetterman is in that situation. I'm sure that the Republic or the Democratic Party, when his term is up, and I don't know when he won in what I think 24, I believe was when he won. So he's got 6 years. He may go until 2030. I'm not sure, but the fact that he's there now. But I think the chances of the Democratic machine in Pennsylvania allowing him to get reelected, unless he changed his tune dramatically on some of the things that he's gone against the Democratic Party, I would be surprised if they would allow him to win a second term.
Yeah, and I just think that this Democrat shooting up there in Minnesota and some of the other things that we've seen in California, where if you are a Democrat and you don't toe the line, the least of your worries is not getting reelected. Other bad things that can happen, you can get doxxed and all kinds of things. So it's I think it looks like the we are starting to see what the Democrats are capable of, or I should say, the radical Democrats are capable of when they feel like they've lost their power and are losing more and more. I think these giant parades, these parades of victims, if you will, that have been out there, they're no longer getting the kind of support they've had in the past for their lifestyle and making normal people, if you will, recognize it. They are now lashing out in a very strong way. There was, as we said the other day, there was a shooting up in Salt Lake City by one of their announced peacekeepers, shot and killed a guy. And I think that as incidents around some of these protests unravel, we're going to see more and more. It's just hard with the mainstream media the way it is. We have to go to podcasts, to One American News, to Right Side Broadcasting, to other places to find out some of these stories that the mainstream media is simply not covering.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things, though, that we have to be concerned about in this country, there are radical people in this country, mentally ill people that have access to firearms and other weapons, but mainly firearms. And one of the stories I saw, I think it was an interview by Brett Baer of Netanyahu, and he asked him, I think specifically, were the Iranians behind the attempted assassinations of Donald Trump? And he said yes.
Oh,
So
really?
we have to be concerned in this country about our leadership and whatnot and how much at harm they are. And so, and Trump is the kind of guy that he puts himself out there and, he shows he's not afraid to go into any situation, any area, any community, and want to meet with anybody and so on. So there's a chance that, one of these radical, crazy people, you can protect the president at all, but look at what happened in Pennsylvania in that field, all right, how close he came to being eliminated.
Now, are you in your travels going to be anywhere near Butler, Pennsylvania? Does that take you anywhere near that you could maybe see firsthand the site where that all happened?
Well, I'm going to be down, I think, this coming Friday, weather permitting. We're going to be down in what's called Lernerville, which is not that far from Butler at all. It's right outside of Pittsburgh, so it's not that far from that location at all.
It would be a very interesting thing to get down there and talk to, because I would bet you any amount of money that where you're going to be, there's going to be people who were there when it
Oh
happened,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
nope.
and to get that take would be just a fascinating thing.
Yeah, well, it's if at all possible, it's at a fairgrounds, and hopefully it's still open to the public. I don't know; they may have done something about it since then, but if it's still open to the public and you can get there, I can certainly, make that side trip and see if there's anything to see there and anybody to talk to.
Well, John, in these days coming up now, I think that what we're going to see, and it's going to be again hard to unravel. But you have Kristi Noem, you have Pam Bondi, you have a lot of the Trump administration going in to find out who has been funding many of these things that have been going on. There's some discussion about that the riots in Los Angeles may have been funded by someone, and you've seen the videos, and we've seen these in the past where bricks show up, flammable devices show up on street corners, where the tools of destruction just magically kind of just show up someplace where they can be used as rocks to hurl at people and things like that. And there has been no small amount of discussion that that someone with plenty of money has been behind this kind of thing, and all the usual suspects come to the forefront. Some people believe that Mexico has been funding the illegals that are in the United States, trying to keep them here. We've heard George Soros's name mentioned as part of this. I mean, this is all coming to the forefront as they begin to dig into this, and I think that there's going to be a lot of folks who end up leaving the country because they may be tied to some of these things that have been going on.
Yeah, I think I can't remember the details of it, but I thought I heard somewhere along the way that the person that paid for these masks that they could wear when they're protesting, so they wouldn't get the if the police fired tear gas, that they wouldn't be bothered by it. I thought that they had found the person that paid for this. I think he was some fellow with some means and whatnot, and I thought that they had arrested him, but I didn't get the details at the time. But you're right. What we need to see in this country and what the people are longing for, there are so many bad people in this country that should be in jail, and hopefully the Trump administration, the DOJ, the FBI are going to start rounding up some of these bad people, these criminals, and start putting them in jail, because that's what people want to see. Somebody has got to be punished for these things that are going on in this country.
Well, this Democrat shooting suspect up in Minnesota, this Vance Butler, as I'm reading these stories, and again, it's early as they begin to unravel this stuff. He was a former Tim Walz appointee, but they have allegedly discovered a No Kings manifesto with a lot of big name elected officials on it, and allegedly they found this Butler's wife with his car, with money, cash, and passports to apparently it would look to the untrained eye, someone who was planning to leave the country and go someplace into hiding. He didn't quite make it, but I think that in addition to the tariffs, where we're beginning to get our economic situation back under control, I think we're going to have a lot of this unrest caused by people who are desperate not to have their funding dry up, and certainly not to be discovered as part and parcel of these schemes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you're beginning to see some of that happening on a maybe a smaller scale. But again, hopefully, as the FBI and the DOJ, and I know they can't just rush into court without evidence to back up their case. So it takes time to develop evidence and get testimony and everything they have to do, form grand juries and whatnot in order to go after some of these people. But I don't think there's any doubt that some of this is not going to start happening. It's going to happen. There's no two ways about it.
Well,
One thing I wanted to mention though is the price of gas, which part of the economy.
yes.
I was shocked and amazed. I bought gas down in southern Ohio when I first came in through from Kentucky. I paid $2.41 a gallon for gasoline.
Wow.
$2.41, and I bought it at a couple different locations at that price. So I mean, it's coming down. We don't see it that much in Florida yet, and I know I'm not going to see it in Pennsylvania, because my daughter told me again yesterday, Dad, it's 3.59 up here, and so on, because they have the second highest gas tax in Pennsylvania, only to California. But in Ohio, the southern part of Ohio, yesterday and whatnot, I paid $2.41 a gallon.
Wow. Now
Yep.
I will tell you that this very morning I was going. My wife is out on her luxury lawnmower, mowing not only our lawn but the neighbor's lawn. And there's a story behind that. But at any rate, I went to buy more gasoline, and I went to the local discount station, which is not always the cheapest, and it was $2.81 for unleaded regular, which is the least that I have seen it for years. For,
Right.
for
Right.
years.
Well, once I left the state of Florida, and even in the northern part of Florida, gas is considerably cheaper than what I paid down in where we live in Sebring, in that area, Highlands County. But as I traveled from, Florida into Georgia, it's always a little cheaper. Into Tennessee, it's definitely cheaper, and into Kentucky, Kentucky's not necessarily that much cheaper. But then as I got into Ohio, and I was kind of prepared because my daughter goes to Ohio to buy most of her gas because she can get it for anywhere from 10 to 25 cents a gallon cheaper up in Ohio, and she's only about 15 miles from Ohio. So, but I was surprised when I saw it that cheap in southern Ohio. I really, really was. But I was happy. My wallet was happy, and I was surprised.
Well, this is, I think, kind of the long term effects now beginning to settle in of what Donald Trump did when he first came into office. People were saying, well, why aren't the prices going down? Why aren't the prices going down? The first prices we saw, of course, that came down with eggs, that they had been like $7 for a dozen, and now we're seeing them for 4 or 5, depending on what kind of eggs you get and where you get them. And now the gasoline prices, who were jumping between roughly 2 and 90 to 3 and 19. The little bounce that they do and coming back down. It seems like they are now really beginning to come down. And some of the economic good news, and hopefully it'll be here in time for the midterms, because if Donald Trump does not carry the Republican Party, the House and the Senate for the midterms, he'll have a terrible next 2 years, and nothing will get done.
Yeah, that's for sure, especially the House, because that's the impeachment arm of the country. And believe me, if the Democrats were to win majority in the House, the first thing they would do would be to impeach Donald Trump.
Well, there was already somebody in the House who had filed impeachment documents, and
Yes,
they got
yes.
thrown out. But if they have any notion that they could make them stick, they wouldn't get thrown out. And the leftists have shown with their boots on the ground what they're able to accomplish. And I think that one of the things that they're worried about is a lot of the illegal voters that have been in the country maybe being deported or being found out. And the Republicans and those who are really worried about election integrity are going to have to work at it. Mike Lindell is now in trial over these Dominion machines, and that trial is going on even as we speak. So a lot of excuse me, a lot of this is coming to a head right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, it is, and it's going to continue because the Democrats, as much as everybody seems to think, well, they're in disarray, they're disorganized, they're falling apart, all that. Remember that they have tons and tons of dirty tricks that they can pull. Illegal voting is at the top of their list, and you're right. Some of that may have been uncovered and maybe done away with currently, but there is still many pockets of this country that are highly democratic. They're not going to go away. They're not going to shrivel up and so on. They're going to come after everything they can, including Donald Trump. And like I said, if in fact they were able to get the majority elected in the House next year, you're going to see impeachment processes. It'll be the Trump first term all over again. And all that's going to happen is that nothing is going to get done in the country. Nothing. And we're going to be at a standstill, and they're going to fight Trump tooth and nail. Now, one thing I'm glad about, Michael Watley is still the head of the RNC as far as, getting out voters and all that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that he stays and he's got plenty of ammunition. And I know that they've learned a lot of their lessons from the Trump first term, but I'm hoping that he can lead the charge and protect the seats and so on. So, good news is going to be, as many of these deported illegals, and also the getting the economy back roaring again is going to be two things that'll really play big time in Trump's favor.
Yes, and I think the American entrepreneurship is firing up, and I think that we're going to start seeing more and more American entrepreneurs getting their uh, getting their businesses off the ground now under the Trump administration, and the American economy is going to be supplanting a lot of the stuff that was made overseas, and especially it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of this G7 summit. Uh,
Right.
John, we're recording this early in the week. Later this week, can you give me a call back and we'll do another couple of shows as a lot of these and other issues begin to unfold?
Oh yeah, later this week, yeah, because I'll be up in the Erie area on probably late Tuesday, and then I'll be there for about 9 or 10 days before I start heading back.
I said, when are you headed back? Thursday or Friday?
Next week, no, it'll be the week after.
Okay, all right. Well, John, listen, you be safe out there, and we'll be talking to you later this week, and we'll do some more programs. People love it when we get together, so we'll be doing some more programs. Okay.
Okay, okay, brother, have a good one.
You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show, not recorded in the beautiful Ridge Floor Studios in the city of Charm, Avon Park, but on the road with JohnLarsen in the Buckeye State of Ohio. Stay tuned because there's more to come in the never ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. This is Barry Foster with JohnLarsen, and we'll see you next time.